Welcome to On My Way to Wealth, the podcast where busy Gen Xers can learn financial tips as they navigate life on their way to wealth. And now, please join your host, Luis Rosa.
This episode is brought to you by Latin Excellence. Visit latinexcellence.com. That's latinxcellence.com or latinxmovement.com to learn more and shop our merchandise. You are excellence. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the On My Way to Wealth podcast, Hispanic Heritage Month edition. My name is Luis Rosa, and I'm your host. Hispanic Heritage Month takes place from September 15th to October 15th every year as a time to recognize and celebrate the many contributions, culture, and extensive histories of the American Latino community. It first began as Hispanic Heritage Week in 1968, and later on became Hispanic Heritage Month in 1988. Since then, the month has been celebrated nationwide through festivals, art shows, conferences, community gatherings, and much more. The reason it starts on September 15th is because it celebrates the independence of several Latin American countries, including Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua on September 15th, Mexico on September 16th, and Chile on September 18th. It also includes holidays that recognize Hispanic contributions, such as Virgin Islands Puerto Rico Friendship Day, which is celebrated in the U.S. Virgin Islands the second Monday in October. For this month, I'd like to highlight individuals who have made a great contribution in their chosen profession and the community at large. So now I'd like to introduce you to our very special guest, Alejandra Alanis. Ale is a risk consulting manager for RSM US LLP, a public accounting firm focused on the middle market. Alejandra grew up in a small town in Eastern Washington and later went on to attend the University of Washington, where she majored in finance and international business. She is the proud daughter of two Mexican immigrants who are now self-employed. Her parents' story has always inspired her, and she's passionate about empowering individuals to pursue their aspirations and excellence. Ale serves as the VP of Membership for ALPHA, the Association of Latino Professionals for America, LA chapter, a nonprofit focused on developing the next generation of Latino leaders, and more recently became part of her firm's National Steering Committee for HOLA, her firm's Latino Employee Network Group. And without further ado, bienvenida, Ale.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I first listened to your podcast when, Crystal Sunbury was part of this podcast. So this is basically my 1-year anniversary of listening to your podcast. So very excited to be here.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I appreciate the support. Did you ever think that you would be on this side of the mic?
I did not. And funny enough, she's messaging me right now, and it's, just a coincidence, and very grateful for this opportunity.
That is awesome. Well, thank you very much. I'm excited to, we've known each other through LinkedIn and all that stuff, but now I'm glad to be able to have this conversation with you. So I appreciate you taking the time. So, tell us a little bit about your background. I know in the bio I mentioned your parents and how they inspire you and their business owners. So tell me a little bit about growing up Latina for you.
Yeah, I grew up with some very hardworking parents. I tell them all the time, I was like, thank you so much for everything you taught me from such a young, early age. I mentioned to him, I was like, I've never said like, oh, I'm not willing to do something or something is not in my grasp. Like they've always said, like, you have everything it takes, whatever you want, you can do it. You just have to put your mind to it and work hard. Give it 110% in everything you do. So I went to school and my mom said, like, it's your only job is to like go to school. So make sure that you focus and, you do the job right. And so I think it's always been their work ethic. I saw them working in the field, and then they started their own business and just saw them continue to grow. And I said, like, it seemed like here the opportunities really were limitless. There was obviously, it was a migrant community. There, sometimes maybe we didn't have all the resources, but at the end of the day, it was that mentality that we could overcome any obstacle and meet our goals and just make the best out of the opportunity of being here.
Yeah, I really love that because they instilled something in you. It was a belief, right? I take it that you actually believe what they were saying, right? Like you can do anything.
I did.
And having that mindset is so important because then regardless of the resources or lack thereof, I feel like you were empowered to just say, you know what, I can do whatever I want, as long as I work hard and keep trying, right? Even if something doesn't work. So that is
Mhm.
so awesome. So important to have that, just like that support system and somebody who instills that in you at an early age, and I'm sure that has impacted the way that you've gone through your career and all the things that you do for the community at large as well. So that is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Um, so tell me, so that I know that your parents emigrated here. Now, were you born in the US?
Yes, I was born in Eastern Washington, small town in Eastern Washington. I mean, I do call it Little Mexico because I think 80% of the people there are Latino. So, I mean, I've always been very close to my community. Spoke Spanish growing up, and it was when I went to school that I learned English, and it's always been very ingrained in me, like our culture, like just how passionate and humble the people are in my community. And so when I went to the University of Washington, it was a culture shock. It was the first time I ever saw someone that wasn't Caucasian, or Mexican. And even with the diversity there, now I realized I was like, oh, one of my classmates was actually Puerto Rican and not Mexican. Like that's how I was living in a bubble and not realizing just all the culture. So I was just fascinated by the change. And, it was difficult going to the university and realizing, oh, I'm a minority. It was the first time I actually felt like a minority. And my brother told me, he's like, if you want to be in business, branch out, like meet other individuals. Like it's really easy to join like a Latina sorority and just make friends right away, but really get out of your comfort zone. Nothing against, the sororities or anything, but he was more of like, expand your network, get to embrace different cultures. And that was one of the best advice he could have given me because I made friends that were Filipino, Indian, and just everything, right? And I just fell in love with diversity at that time. And one thing that was really nice while I was in college was that I did get exposed to Alpha, which is the organization that I'm now part of, which is the Association of Latino Professionals for America. And that was a way to have a community that I was close to while in college, but it gave me the sense of still being at home, but expanding and growing who I was. So that organization is near and dear to my heart because I didn't feel homesick. I felt like it was my safe space. We were all learning. We were all in the same place where half of us didn't know what we were doing, whether we were going to make it, but it was really my support system. And that's the reason I'm still involved with it because it just means so much to me. And it did wonders for me while in school and also landing my first job.
That is awesome. Yeah, because you went from like your own little bubble, like you mentioned, which I get exactly why that's done. I'm from the Dominican Republic and I grew up in Washington Heights in New York City, which at the time was also like its own little Dominican bubble. You could live there. It's mostly Dominican neighborhood. You could get away with not speaking English either because it was just like, you can go to the bodega, I speak Spanish. Everybody spoke Spanish. And I remember one of my sisters was very adamant about, like she wanted her kids to speak Spanish, even though they were born here in the US. And I remember that they were like, all right, you're not allowed to speak English in the house. So it wasn't nothing against America. It was more like, we want to make sure that you still are part of this culture, you know Spanish, because it can easily be lost. And I've seen that now with my younger, just the babies in the family that are born like much later now. It's they immediately go to school, they learn English, and they kind of understand Spanish. They can talk to their grandparents, my parents, right? But they're not really able to have like a full on Spanish conversation. And I have a feeling that by the time they have kids, that's probably gonna just fade away. So I get why that was done, but I'm so glad that you had the Alpha core community around you because then you kind of felt at home, but it still gave you the expansion that you needed to. Which was great advice by your brother, right? Was it that gave you that advice? That was great advice, by the way, to just get out of your comfort zone and just go out there and meet other people. That's amazing. So I think you had a really good formula between getting out there and also thinking you can do anything. It's a recipe for success.
Absolutely. My brother is instrumental to where I'm at. I told him, I was like, I'd be figuratively and literally lost without you because he really said do this, don't do that, take these tests. Like I almost didn't go to the University of Washington. I was like, no, like what if I'm overwhelmed? What if I don't make it? Like I wanted to go to a different school, I was like, maybe I'll be one of the smart kids there, And he's like, that is terrible logic. Don't do that. And so he's like, take a chance on yourself, do it. And the other advice he gave me was study abroad. So basically, he was giving me all the tips that he didn't do. So when he went to college, he joined Los Hermanos and he said it was great. It was wonderful, but he wished he could have branched out and got to network with more individuals. He didn't study abroad. So he's like, don't make the same mistake I did. Study abroad. And that just opened the door to me traveling, learning so much. I mean, I lived in Costa Rica for 4 months and it changed the course of my life entirely. And so that's why I like to be part of Alpha, because I feel like I'm a big sister to some individuals. I'm like, don't keep repeating the same mistakes as other people. Like there's individuals that have already gone through this. And you can really enhance your life by following the advice of other individuals. So I know how fortunate I was to have, my family and my brother to guide me. And so I want to do the same for other individuals because they have everything it takes, but sometimes it's just paving that path for them to follow.
Yeah, that is such important advice. If you're wise enough to listen to those who've already done what you're trying to do, and they might have failed at it, but now you know one way of not to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take me back a little bit to Costa Rica. Tell me, why was that trip so life-altering for you?
So the advice that someone who was really close to retirement said, you're going to work for the rest of your life, travel while you're young. And so when I got my offer, I could start in January or delay it to September. And I said, you know what? I'm going to delay it to September. I'm going to do some traveling. I went to Costa Rica and I didn't have a lot of money. I did teach English for as a foreign language, but a lot of the jobs after that month were for like a year long, but I already had a commitment to come back in September. So I did little odd jobs of working in a butterfly garden and just little jobs that paid like $2 an hour. And
Wow.
it was, obviously very little. And having to like live off of that money. Sometimes they gave you breakfast and lunch, but not dinner. And so I'd have to make it enough. And I was with one friend where we'd go to sleep early because we were hungry. And so it was an experience where when I was growing up in, America, obviously there's food all the time. I was like overeating at times just because I love food. I mean, the food, at my house is great. Everything we have here. And when I was there, I realized, how little you really need to like survive and how little you need to just be like grateful. And it just changed my thought on the fact of how individuals are living in other places and how yet they can be so happy with so little. So I guess it changed both my perspective on food and it also changed my perspective of just like what I value most. And I think at that time, it was like, I don't need like material possessions really, as long as I can provide and have a roof over my head, have something to eat, and just really embrace like the world was something that I learned from my experience traveling to Costa Rica.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that definitely speaks to my heart. You're so right. Sometimes we accumulate things just because we live here. That's just the way things are, right? I feel like, I know these UPS drivers on a first name basis sometimes, because you just order a whole bunch of stuff. And yeah, we live in a culture of abundance, even though we may not realize it, because like you said, it's perspective, right? Some people might have never been to Costa Rica or Dominican Republic and see how people live in the other side of the world. And, to this day, I'm still very thankful for the very same things you mentioned when I wake up. It's like, the things that I have today that were not for granted in Dominican Republic, like running electricity, running water, food, right? Like, yeah, we had food. I ate every day, but it wasn't like I could just, eat whatever I wanted either. That always makes me laugh because I see now like my parents, when they're taking care of their grandchildren, the kids get options, they get a menu. Yeah. Hey, what do you want to eat? That was never a thing in my house. It was like, here's what you're eating today.
Yeah, no, exactly. My mom says that she has a home daycare and, she's like, some of these kids are like, oh, I don't want to eat that. So you make him something else. And yeah, the options, right? And I will say, I still go to the grocery store sometimes. And when I walk in, I'm just in awe because I'm like, I can buy anything in this grocery store, like something as little as that, because I'm like, I can buy my fancy organic bread if I want. And I'm
Right.
just so grateful for that. Where it's like, it really is the little things.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your motivation now, because obviously you're very grateful for the little things. So what drives you? What motivates you?
Yeah, I was actually talking to my mom about this yesterday because sometimes we look back and we're like, "Oh, I wish I would have done this differently. I wish I wouldn't have gone down that path or something," right? But I tell my mom like sometimes certain things have had to happen for other things to take place. I think the thing I want to share was that when I was a teenager, my parents split, and my mom thought, oh, this might be very difficult for the kids, and I could have taken it pretty hard, but I told my mom, I was like, you know what? If it wasn't for that happening, I don't think I would be the independent woman that I am today. Like that really sparked my motivation to just be able to like live life on my own terms and be able to say goodbye to an employer, a partner, a friendship, if it wasn't serving me the way that it needed to serve me. So I wanted to be emotionally independent, financially independent, so that I could really make the calls, because I do feel that my mom probably stayed in the relationship longer than she should have. Financially, she was actually, pretty good, but emotionally, she wasn't. And so I love my dad, great father, but at the end of the day, I wish my mom could have been in that position, but there's nothing you can do now. So it was only about putting myself in the position to be able to know my worth and walk away from a situation that does not serve me.
Yeah, that must be so empowering and freeing at the same time, right? Just to be able to
Yeah.
have that, because you're right. I think a lot of people, particularly women, tend to unfortunately be in a position where they have to stay in a relationship out of necessity, whether it's emotional, financial, or both. So I'm glad that you actually took that as an opportunity to learn it and just motivate you to say, hey, I don't want to be in this situation ever. If I want to stay in a relationship, it's because I really want to be there. And if I don't, I can leave, which is it was so important for women to empower themselves financially, for sure, independent of their spouses. You should have your own credit, you should have your own savings and so on. Not saying that you should have everything separate, but there's also got to be some sort of independence factor, or at least know what's going on with the finances of the family, right? So
Hmm.
you're not left in the dark in case of a split or even a death, right? Because I've seen that happen too,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that is so empowering. I feel like the listeners will get a lot out of this because, you are an example of someone that they can see themselves in, you know? And like you said, like big sister style, but,
Yeah.
but you're motivating us old folks too, so.
So awesome. And yeah, that's really what I want to emphasize to, individuals through Alpha, through this podcast, through anything is like, I'm just like a 5 foot girl from Eastern Washington that, le echó ganas, like, she put her head down, worked hard, but also knew strategies to be able to like get myself to the next step and really, focusing on just the little steps to get there. Sometimes I feel like we overwhelm ourselves and like, I have to do like a million things before I'm this age. And I was like, no, I just take it day by day. It's the daily habits and the daily rituals and who you surround yourself with that really help you move forward.
Yeah, very important. It's so true. I think society sometimes has like these predetermined things that you're supposed to do, like graduate college by a certain age. And then, for the most part, usually you're supposed to start a family shortly thereafter, buy a house and have what is it, 2.5 kids and a dog, right? By a certain
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you get to where you are today in terms of like just the trajectory, right? From school, then you started your job. How did you get to today?
Yeah. I was going to say one thing about being like, a daughter of immigrants is that we're very resourceful, right?
Yes.
And so, family had a lot to do with it, the support system through Alpha. And just like the friends I had, they were all very motivating, goal getters. And so I think that helped a lot. And it's also the reason I'm still part of Alpha is because I think it really gave me the tools and even more of that confidence needed to continue moving forward. We have an Alpha convention once a year where we get together with over like 3,000 Latinos. And it's during those conventions that I feel so empowered. I realize, where Latinos are headed, how much of the economy we impact, and just really helps me define my worth. So I transitioned over to RSM US 3 years ago. And during that time, I was like, I know my skill sets, I know what I bring to the table. So I feel like my negotiation skills, like I upped them. And so it was all through Alpha that really gave me the tools that I needed and also the confidence to say, like, this is what I offer, this is what I require. And that allowed me to meet some financial goals and some goals I had for myself. And I really think it's just like the people around me and organizations such as Alpha.
Yeah, that is gold right there, what you said about knowing your worth and asking for things, because sometimes, especially when we're younger, we just take whatever is given and don't even question it, fight back, inquire, anything. Just think that's the way it's supposed to be. But you could negotiate your salary. you know,
Mm-hmm.
you could negotiate a raise, especially if you put yourself in a situation where you can prove what you've done, right? Keep track of some metrics that you can say, listen, because of the work I did, this is how it affected the bottom line of the company, whatever, right? If you can quantify it, yeah, absolutely. Don't be shy, because if you don't ask, they're not necessarily just going to come and say, hey, would you like a raise?
Yeah.
They might just give you the standard, whatever it is, once a year. And a lot of people don't even question that or just don't think that they can. So thank you for sharing that, because that is such an important tool to be able to empower yourself. I think anything, even $5,000 a year raise could make a huge difference in somebody's
Absolutely.
life, when you compound the interest over a lifetime, so that is super powerful. Yeah, I had the privilege of going to one of the Alpha conferences in Las Vegas with the CFP board. And yeah, I love the energy. That's where I met Crystal and then became part of the Las Vegas Alpha chapter after that. Before that, I had not heard of the organization. So I'm glad that I was introduced to it. And now that I'm in LA, yeah, I got to hit you guys up.
Yeah. No, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, start attending some events. Thank you. So tell me, what are some of the factors that contributed most to your success, would you say?
I think my support group, the organization, and I will say something that I don't think sometimes we talk about enough is like sponsorship too. So that's one thing that I learned early on. I mean, branding was very important. I learned a lot about how to really market yourself, market your personal brand, leveraging things like LinkedIn and also your internal network at the at your company. But one thing that I learned maybe few years into the career is the importance of having a sponsor. And so when I came over to RSM, I feel as though I inherited, like I got some sponsors early on, and that's someone that's really advocating for you. And I think that's done a lot for me at the firm. There's two individuals that I have in mind right now. One isn't even part of my service line. He's actually a tax partner. So Richard Gabaldon is one individual who, from the very beginning, I met him. He's like, you know what, lead our employee network group. And I was like, okay. And then he said, you know what, I think you'd be great for this Asset Executive Women's Leadership Program. And I was like, I just got here. Like, is there someone else? And he's like, no, just do it. And that expanded my network. And then there's another individual who's actually not even Latino. His name is Victor Ko, who's opened up so many opportunities for me that have really made me more visible to the firm. And he's always like, oh, Alejandra would be great for this opportunity. And I think it's so important to make sure that you're at a company where you have that type of support system and those advocates for you, especially because many minorities or women, sometimes we don't advocate for ourselves enough. And so it's a way that helps us bridge that gap where someone else is advocating on behalf of us, right? And it's so important because I feel like sometimes as Latinos, like we're just like, oh, just like put your head down and work, and people are going to notice you and promote you. And I was like, corporate America is a whole different game. There's a lot of strategies in order for you to continue progressing. It's really about, obviously doing your job, being technical, but really growing your network and being placed in a position where more opportunities come your way. And so it was something that I feel like it was very easy at RSM because we just have a lot of great leadership. So I feel sometimes people might think that, their company, it's like, this is the best, right? Like, I'm not going to have it any better than I have it right now. But sometimes it's like, go check another job out and maybe it's better. And if it's not, as long as you didn't burn any bridges, maybe you can go back. We have individuals that leave the firm and then they come back. We call them boomerangs. And so really being confident and, building up that resume, knowing your worth and exploring your options.
Yeah, I love the way you make that analogy of you being a brand, thinking of yourself as a brand, because hard work, putting your head down in and of itself may get you noticed, but corporate America, like you said, is another beast. So I love the fact that you say, hey, think of yourself as a brand. So you got to leverage certain things like your LinkedIn profile, things like that, your connections, and then having people that advocate for you will be like your marketing department, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you recommend one goes about having those sponsors, mentorship relationship? You just like, how do you recommend somebody like approaches someone to ask them if they will be that for them?
Yeah. One, network, join the events at the firm. I mean, there's a lot of virtual events where you can network with individuals outside of your office. Attend conferences where you will meet those individuals that you have a connection with, and be able to like build that relation, right? Because it starts from starting the relationship, right? You have to meet the person, build some type of relationship where you feel comfortable. And then I will say many times it just organically happens. But I think sometimes if you want to do it more formal, build that relationship, have a few conversations and say like, hey, Crystal or Nelly Montoya, which is someone else, like, I really love everything you've done. I want to follow in your steps. Can we kind of formalize this? But I think it really starts with just like starting the relationship, right? You're not going to meet them and right away say, hey, I love your title and everything you've done so far. I looked at your LinkedIn. Please mentor and sponsor me, So I think it's just like slowly working through that relationship.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just all flattery.
Yeah.
You got to be tactful about it. I love that. I love that. Yeah, because you mentioned one of your sponsors basically advocates for it. Say, hey, Ale would be great for this. It might be an opportunity that may have never come your way, right? If you didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
So that is so important. Now, speaking of then mentorships and sponsorships, is there anything that you feel like is still lacking today for Latinos, as they work towards achieving their goals?
Many things. We could start
Where do we
to,
start?
I was like, we can start with kindergarten education. No. Yeah, there still is a lot of lack of resources, but I think I will go back to just the belief in oneself, right?
Hmm.
And how you're managing your time. I love organizations like Alpha because it is nonprofit. It's individuals giving their time to help students. We've had a few calls where it's like, we focus on college students, but let's focus on high school students, right? So it's really about planting the seed. I think at the end of the day, we're not going to go and reform the whole education system in the next 2 years. Like,
Right.
let's be realistic, right? So for me, I think that, not to get too political here, but if we want to make a greater, like America, a greater nation, it really is up to like the individuals. Like for us that we've, done, we're working towards being, successful in our careers, managing our finances, like pay it forward, right? Like take the time. Sometimes we might get caught up, we have our own our own job, family, all of that, but just taking an hour of your day to just talk to a high school student or a college student to show them the path, right? And for me with Alpha, it's about making the greatest impact in the least amount of time. So what we do with Alpha is we market it, we put it together with like a small army. And then it's like, hey, for one day, can you come and present on personal branding or interview skills? And you're presenting to about 100 students, right? And so that's what I think we need to see more of, is more individuals really paying it forward, sharing your stories just as you've done. Because even if the kids don't get what they need as part of like maybe their education, we do have the internet now. We have a lot of resources out there. But I think it's really us, doing what we can to pay it forward.
Yeah, I really love that concept too, because yeah, if you're lucky enough to have had those resources, then you also want to make sure you pay it forward to the next generation. So how can one get in touch with Alpha, either on a local, national level, if anybody out there wants to get involved?
Yeah, super easy. Just look up alpha.org. That's alpha, ALPFA. And membership is free. I mean, that's what the CEO did to like just increase our awareness. The basic membership is free. There's corporate memberships, but at the end of the day, you'll sign up, choose the location, you'll get the monthly newsletters and get involved. And, I love it. I'm in LA, my family's in Washington. And so it's my way to grow my Alpha Familia and, meet all the people down there and really build community.
Nice. I love it. So alpha.org, I'll also be putting a link directly in the show notes. So be sure to check that out. And if anybody wants to find you personally, are you on social media at all? Any profiles that you like to share?
Yeah. So LinkedIn is the one I like to use for professional networks. There's some individuals that have reached out to like just get on a little cafecito and get to talk about RSM. So if you're interested in the public accounting world or just want to get to learn more about, building your personal brand, feel free to reach out to me. It's Alejandra Alanis. You can find me on LinkedIn and also my Instagram, Ale Alanis, UW at I was like, at Instagram, I don't even remember what it is, or just
Yeah, I
that.
guess just add. Yeah. Well, I'll be putting a link to both of those in the show notes so that people can just click on them and find you directly without having
Awesome.
to, go too crazy. Now, tell me, what is one common misconception that you believe people have about Hispanics or the Hispanic culture in this country?
Oh, there's so many. No,
Where do we start again, right?
it's just like we started this conversation before we started recording. We're not all from Mexico, even though many of the people on here have been.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. We're not all from
I think,
Mexico.
yeah, no, I'll say, I mean, I think a lot of times, like we do have a lot of individuals that are, professionals that are lawyers and doctors and are in corporate. We definitely don't have enough.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of underrepresentation. And I can speak to like my own field in financial planning.
Mhm.
Latinos are like 2.6 something percent of all like certified financial planner professionals, which is like
Mhm.
so minimal, out of like 90 something thousand, it's like 1,400 of us. Uh,
Mhm.
I've only met like two, by the way. I don't know where the rest are at, but yeah, it's crazy. It's like a
Yeah.
minority within the minority.
Yeah. And I'll say, like, the misconception, luckily, I do feel like, at least in the settings I've been in, I think we have like a positive, like, how do I say it? Like, I think it's pretty positive. Like, it's like, I think we're hardworking, we're passionate, we speak our mind. And that's actually why I really want to have more Latinos in corporate. Like, I'm in a professional services field, and I think that we could really kick butt in this field, right? I feel like we're
Absolutely.
really good at building relationships. And for me, it's sad that we don't have more individuals in those fields, because I really think we can just thrive, right? And so that's what I want to continue seeing, is more individuals knowing that they have the ability to be in a career where you're working with C-level suite executives and all of that, because
Yeah,
we are really great at building relationships and we need to leverage our strengths more.
absolutely. I love that. Absolutely. I think we need more of us in so many different fields. We got to spice things up, right?
Yeah.
I always I tell people with what I do with financial planning, I'm like, I can't service every single client out there. Like, we need more of us, please. Which is why one of the reasons I created the BLX internship program is to get more Black and Latinx people into the financial planning profession, because we need more of
Absolutely.
us, to better reflect the population of the US, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we we got to grow. I mean, we have the numbers, right? We need to just allocate our efforts, but we can do it. Si se puede, right?
Yeah, sí se puede. And I think anyone who's debating about joining CFP route, do it. I mean, think about your parents, right? Do you think they're going to take advice from someone like you, or someone that, they have nothing in common with, don't speak the language? Like, if we're going to kick butt and continue moving, we have to get our finances in order. And that starts with us and, getting more Latinos in this field for sure.
Without a doubt, without a doubt, absolutely. So let's get to some fun stuff. I want to ask you, tell me one thing that you love about being Latina.
Ooh, I think it's all the things that I said about Latinos. Like, I think we're passionate, hardworking. I think we're great at building relationships. But I think one thing that I love about like our Latinos is just how welcoming and humble they are. Like, it's just an awe. Like, I remember going to Mexico during the winters, and people like just greet you, and they're like, here, have some frijoles. Like, it's like, we don't have much, but whenever you come, like, you'll have at least like, some beans and stuff. And I've
Yeah,
always just that just touches my heart. The community is just so welcoming and humble, and I love it.
that is so true. And that happens too. Like, when I've gone to like a conference and I've met another Latino, like, there's an instant connection there. That you just like, "¿Qué pasa? What's up, man?" And then you just
Hmm.
like kind of like just like an immediate bond to some degree, right?
Yeah.
It certainly is a beautiful thing. Um, so you share some of the stuff you're grateful for, and I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite food?
Oh, I have some friends that are like, your nickname should be Chilaquiles, because I love Chilaquiles. Yes, I will say in LA, Venice Bakery is awesome.
Have to check
But
that
if you
out.
have any other Chilaquiles suggestions, feel free to let me know on LinkedIn. That's totally okay. But yeah, that's my favorite. And my mom does make the best Chilaquiles.
Ooh, nice. That sounds good. That sounds good. I stopped eating meat a while back, but I find that here in LA, there's still like so many vegan restaurants that make like vegan versions of all kinds of stuff that I'm
Hmm.
just like, like jackfruit, for example, like you use that as carnitas and stuff. I've had
Yeah.
quite a bit of stuff like that, and yeah, I really really enjoy that. So I'm living it up over here in terms of getting in touch with all the Mexican food.
Yeah, it's interesting because that place I mentioned, they serve their chilaquiles with plantains, and so it was the first
Ooh,
time I went somewhere where they serve it with plantains, because that is more Central America, right? And
right.
so it was different for me, but it was really good.
Do they
Great
use the
place.
sweet ones or the green
Yeah,
ones?
sweet.
They're
So they have both
like
red
yellow.
and green.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they have the sweet plantains.
Wow. I got to check that out. Yeah, the Dominican Republic, that's like a staple, like
Hmm.
the green plantain, right? You either mash it, so you make mango. It's kind of like mashed potatoes, we just mashed plantains, or you fry it. It's like a double fry, and you make the
Hmm.
tostones. You know.
Yeah.
um, tell me, I like always to ask this question: like, if somebody was in an elevator ride with you, and they were going from the bottom floor to like the 10th floor, very short, like 45-second ride, and they were never going to see you again, what is one piece of advice that you would tell them? If that's all you can say, hey, listen, that you will probably never speak again, but I want to leave you with this. Or, Hispanic men and women out there just trying to go after their dreams. I know it's a lot, right? It's like, how do I bottle it all up into like, it could be a few things, but.
I normally can think of so many quotes, but this time was like the last thing. I think one motto that I've always had is like, leave people better than you found them. Um,
Nice.
But I would say, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the best you can do is work towards being the best version of you. Um, and maybe the third one that comes to mind was like, if today was your last day, what regrets would you have?
Yeah, wow. Um, that's deep stuff. You know, I like leave people better than you found them because normally you hear leave things, right, or place better than you
Mhm.
found them, but it's leave people. So there's an element of growth in there. You know, I really
Mhm.
like that. And then in terms of improving yourself, um, how do you go about like keeping track of how much better you can do? You know, kind of like measuring the success. You know, holding up that mirror. Do you do something specifically for yourself where you're like, I can do this better, or like setting goals, deadlines, etc. That might be helpful.
Yeah. Um, it's actually funny, but I celebrate my half birthday because it happens to be on Cinco de Mayo.
Oh
But
wow.
I really use that as like, I think life is like a game, right? So that half birthday, I celebrate it and I call it, the half point, basically halftime during the game, where I really evaluate the past the first half of the year, right? I'm like, how did I do? Am I working towards it? Am I better than I was last year? Have I read a little bit more? Am I in better shape? And then really figure out like how much do I really need to step it up to finish strong for the last part, you know? And so that's how I really evaluate it. And I'm very goal oriented and I need things to like help me work towards it. So for 9/11, I signed up for a half marathon, so that was going to hold me accountable. And so um, I've always had a goal that I wanted to complete 5 marathons before 30. However, COVID, so many things, and honestly, just me just being like, oh, I don't have the time and stuff, right? But with I had my cousin who passed recently, and I was like, you know what? I need to do it. Because she was always a huge advocate, always supporting me in anything that I wanted to do. And I was like, and I'm going to run this one in memory of her. So I just like did it. I signed up for it. So on my birthday, I'm going to work on that um, goal on running that full marathon. And so, like, just holding me accountable, like really assessing where you're at different points. I know I heard advice too, like from someone that's a CFP on like having a monthly finance date. So just like going in and like reviewing like where I'm at. So I think it's really important to just like keep assessing where you're at and working towards those goals and tracking towards, how you're working towards meeting them. But I will say with any goal, one day at a time, like don't overwhelm yourself. It's like walking 10 minutes, walking 20 minutes, right? Like just setting those SMART goals. I know we hear it all the time, but just taking it day by day. Because of I will say the one book I really liked was The Compound Effect. And so it's basically like just cutting little things out and like the impact that it has over time, right? So like if you're eating just 20 more calories every day, but 1 year down the road, like that's a lot, right? So subtracting it is also a lot, but it doesn't feel like a lot during that day. And so that is one book I will say that was great, was The Compound Effect.
The compound effect. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. You know, you bring up a great point. Um, the fact that you're making it where like if you don't measure it, then how do you know if you're getting closer to the goal, right? So you can't improve it. But I love the half year mark and thinking of it like a game and say, hey, it's halftime. How do we do? What can we improve? I mean, that's so powerful because most people I think wait until the end of the year, right? And then they start this New Year's resolution after they've been on a free for all for like a past month, right? Between all the holidays, eating and drinking. And then now you
Hmm.
go from one extreme to the very other extreme. All right, I'm joining the gym, and it's very hard. Like you kind of set yourself up for failure with that
Yeah.
mindset. This is amazing. Half year mark. I like that. Celebrate your half birthday.
Comparing yourself too. I was like, don't compare someone else's like day 2000 some to like your day one. I think that's always been a big thing. It's just really focusing on like your life, because you can only measure it based on like what your life is, right? Like sometimes I tell myself like, I'm not gonna have a stack. I work this many hours. I'm involved with this many things. So like my fitness goals are based on like my lifestyle and just what is important to me. And so understanding that like someone else, like, yeah, maybe they do have that six pack and they're lifting this or whatever, but like, what does their day look like? And there are some people that can do it all, right? Work the 80 hours and do that, but you don't know people's life. So I will say just focus on your goals, because you can really only truly measure your progress and not your progress to someone else's.
Yeah, that's solid. And I think social media sometimes makes that worse, because some people only post the good stuff, right? And then you see like all this stuff, be like, oh my God, why am I not there? Right. But you don't know what went on behind the scenes, right? To get to that point. That's a great point. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ali. This has been amazing. I'm so glad that you were able to come on and share with us your background and all these gold nuggets of how you go about your life and just becoming better and better, and also helping others along the way as well. So thank you so much for, just sharing. This has been extremely motivating for me. I'm going to try this half birthday thing now.
Nice.
And my birthday's in December, so it's like half the year technically, so it works out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor, especially given everything that you're doing to help the community. So really appreciate you having me here.
My pleasure. Yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. Stay tuned to just the next episodes as we're doing this Growing Up Latino, Growing Up Latina series. We're going to continue to have great speakers like Ale, who are coming with their own version of inspiring stories and things that they do to continue to improve themselves in the community. So I appreciate you all tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to On My Way to Wealth. If you have any questions, please send me an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. The information provided here is for information and education purposes only. The opinions expressed herein are solely those of myself, unless otherwise specifically cited. Material presented is believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations are made by my firm or myself about other parties' information or accuracy or completeness. All information or ideas provided should be discussed in detail with a financial advisor, accountant, or legal counsel prior to implementation. Thank you.